So the 4 Ps, this comes from a paper, a psychiatric paper. A bunch of psychiatrists wrote this many years ago, and I think it's just fantastic. I share this with all of my students whenever we do trainings, and when I'm really stuck, I break this out and I write it out, right, on a table, on a Word document. I do it for myself. Often I don't now, I just kind of think in these ways, but I sit down and I actually write this out in point form when there's, or if I'm doing a file review before and it's a large file and it doesn't seem very clear to me and there's a lot of different information, I find this to be a critically helpful piece. So the 4 Ps of case conceptualization, predisposing factors, precipitating factors, perpetuating or maintaining factors, and protective factors, right? So you can think about each one of these, right, that any one of our kids will have kind of relevant components in some of these cells, and in other cells they'll be blank. So you don't need to have kind of every cell kind of filled out. But what might be, let's talk about a case that you might have. So somebody screamed, let's do social anxiety disorder here, right? Social anxiety. You have a child with heavy social anxiety over and above their kind of social challenges. What might be some of the biological kind of predisposing factors that you might consider relevant to understanding this child? Just you just shout it out and I'll repeat it. Yeah, so what kind of information? Genetics. What would tell you that there might be genetic components? Exactly. So a parent kind of, does anxiety run in the family, right? You don't need to have a karyotype done. You don't need to do genetic screening to start to fill in some of those pieces, right? If you know there's a family history, right? That starts to go in there. How about, what might be, same thing for social anxiety, a psychological stressor, a precipitant to the increased social anxiety a child might feel? Right, so there might be these acute stressors in the child's life that might not be related to the content of their social anxiety, which might be evaluation from their peers, right, in a classroom environment, but might be very relevant in terms of an acute stressor, right? That might be very different than the maintaining factors, right, that are happening. So that's part of the story, part of the narrative of what led to this increase. When you ask, well, when did Billy start to change, right? When was Billy's shift, right? And that becomes part of the story that's told to you. But what might be a maintaining factor, a psychological maintaining factor of that child's social anxiety? I'll set the stage for you, right? So Billy now refuses to speak in class. He refuses to eat with his peers, right? He refuses to sit anywhere except for at the back of the class right next to the door, right? He hasn't shown lots of symptoms, physiological symptoms of panic, right? But he's expressed to you that he doesn't like it when other people look at him anymore. He doesn't like that they're judging him, okay? That they're judging him as a loser, okay, this kid. That wasn't there before. This is part of his new narrative. So what might be, and this has been happening for like 2 months, and now it's finally really interfering with his learning, so he's referred to you. What might be some factors psychological factors and social factors that might be maintaining this kind of over time? Many kids feel anxious and feel judged in a social situation, but it doesn't last. It doesn't keep going for 3 months. What keeps this going for him? Avoidance. Okay, great. So avoidance. So rather than trying it out, he's kind of falling into that loop of avoiding, right? That's a maintaining kind of factor. That's not a biological factor or a stressor. Now you could argue, yes, of course, there's always somebody who says, well, everything's biological. Yes, it might have biological representations, but we think of that as like a psychological factor. What might be a social factor that's maintaining this? Bullying. Right, so chronic bullying, some very relevant ongoing stressors, social stressors in that child's environment, right? So by thinking, regardless of your case, think about the different pieces, okay, as they reflect. And I'm telling you, if you don't take anything else from this morning's I hope you take more than just this. But if you don't take anything else, if this is a new addition to your toolkit, then it's well worth it. This serves me so well, because many times the files that I get are huge. The stories that I get are not discrete elements with clear kind of nice assessments that are 12 pages long and give me everything organized way, right? I get reports from all over the place, and the narrative, when I'm talking and I'm trying to bring the problem into the room, is also all over the place. Right? And I can't say yet what's most relevant or where I'm going to start. So organizing this in bullet form in very concrete ways, so not just saying things like, putting things on like genetics, but family history of bipolar disorder, right? These are the ways, ongoing issues of, marital stress, right? Figuring out where they work for you here, and then do it in pencil or do it electronically so you can move things around as you learn more about the child and the family. It should evolve as you go, okay? So this is a key conceptualization piece that I find extremely relevant.